Welcome! Today we're diving into a really big question in AI. How do you get it to handle the messy, complex jobs we deal with in the real world? We're going to break down this idea of building AI teams, and we'll be using a framework called Agent Studio to guide us. So let's jump right in. So we all know AI is pretty amazing at doing one specific thing, right? But think about your own job for a second. When is anything ever just one simple step? Almost never. The real trick, the real challenge, is getting AI to manage a whole workflow that has a bunch of different parts, touches different systems, and has multiple goals.
And the answer, conceptually at least, is just brilliant. Instead of trying to build one single super genius AI that knows literally everything, you build a team of specialized AIs that actually work together. You see the shift? It's moving away from an overworked generalist to a dedicated crew of focused experts.
This is what you could call the AI coordination problem. You know, a single task in a business, let's say hiring a new employee, needs expertise in totally different domains. One part needs to get into your HR systems, another needs to talk to external job sites, and maybe a third needs to check calendars. A single AI trying to be an expert in all of that at once, it's just not going to work. It's going to fall short.
Okay, to make this really click, let's use an analogy from the real world. When you take your car in for a service, you don't just hand your keys to one person who is the receptionist, the mechanic, the parts guy, and the billing clerk, right? I mean, that would be total chaos. No, instead, what you find is a really well-organized system. And this, it turns out, is the perfect metaphor for how these multi-agent AI systems work. So let's do it. Let's build our very own AI auto shop.
This right here maps it out perfectly. The service advisor who greets you and figures out what's wrong, that's your supervisor agent. The planner, the specialist mechanics who actually fix the engine or the brakes, those are the worker agents. They're the doers. And their wrenches and diagnostic machines, those are the tools, things like APIs that connect to other software. And the shop's policies, the way they do things, we're going to call those topics, reusable guidelines that keep everything consistent. Now let's go meet this AI crew up close.
All right, so let's formally meet the crew and check out their tools. These are the fundamental building blocks you're going to be working with inside Agent Studio.
First up, you've got the agent team, which really acts as the supervisor. Think of this as the brain of the operation. It's the one talking to the user. Its main job is to hear the request, break it down into smaller jobs, and then figure out who's the best agent for each of those jobs. It's the planner.
And then you have the individual agents, so what we're calling the workers. These are your specialist mechanics. So you might build one worker who's an absolute expert on your Salesforce data, and another who knows everything about your HR system, and maybe a third one whose only job is to search internal company documents. These are the doers.
Now here's a really key idea. The agents themselves are just thinkers. To actually do anything, they need equipment. And in the AI world, we call these tools. A tool could be a connection to a database, a search function, or an API, which is really just a standard way for different computer programs to talk to each other. The bottom line is, without tools, an agent can't do any useful work. And finally, we have topics. Just think of this as the company rulebook. Topics are these handy, reusable instructions that make sure everything stays consistent. So you could use a topic to set a standard greeting for all of your AI teams, or maybe to provide specific rules for handling data, depending on where the user is from. It's a really smart way to apply rules without having to rewrite every single agent's instructions.
So the hierarchy here is absolutely crucial. The supervisor takes the request, but it never touches the tools directly. It delegates the tasks to the worker agents, and it's only the worker agents, the specialists, who actually pick up the tools to get the job done. This separation of duties is really the key to building a system that's stable and can actually scale.
Okay, we've met the whole crew. We know what they do. Now let's see how this team actually comes together to solve a pretty complex problem.
So here's a request from a user, and honestly, this would be impossible for a simple single AI to answer. Why? Because it requires knowledge from two completely different worlds: a private, internal system like Salesforce, and a public music service like Spotify.
So what does the supervisor do? Well, it looks at this sentence and it immediately realizes, hey, this isn't one job, it's two separate jobs. So its task now is to act like a dispatcher and figure out, okay, which specialist in my crew is the right one for each part of this request. And look at how this plays out. The supervisor sees the phrase Salesforce accounts, and because it knows what its workers are good at, it goes, boom,
That's a job for the Salesforce agent. Then it sees top pop songs on Spotify and routes that piece over to the Spotify agent. That is intelligent delegation in action. It's beautiful.
And here is another super important detail. The worker agents, they don't talk to each other. This is not some chaotic free-for-all. The Salesforce agent does its job and reports its findings back to the supervisor. The Spotify agent does the same. It's the supervisor's job to collect all those pieces and then put together the final coherent answer for the user.
Okay, now that we get the architecture, let's talk about how to actually build these teams so they work well. Here's some of the most important best practices, coming straight from the experts.
You know, the performance of your AI team really comes down to the quality of your instructions, which we call prompts. You have to be super specific about an agent's role, and this is just as important, you have to set boundaries. Tell the agent what it shouldn't do. This is huge for preventing it from going off topic or just making stuff up, a behavior we call hallucinating. Vague instructions are pretty much the enemy of good AI.
So when you boil it all down, it all comes back to specialization. The real magic here is breaking down a huge problem into smaller, much more manageable pieces. By giving each worker agent its own focused expertise, you get way more accuracy, much better performance, and a system that's a whole lot easier to manage and fix if something goes wrong. And for anyone out there who actually has to build and plug these systems in, here's the best part. All of this incredible coordination, the planning, the delegating, the tool usage, all of it gets kicked off with a single command. So instead of trying to juggle dozens of different connections, it's all managed through one secure API call. And that simplifies the development process dramatically.
And this really is the leap forward. We're moving beyond simple chatbots that can just answer basic questions. This is about building a digital workforce that can collaborate to automate entire business workflows from end to end.
And that brings us to our final question for you. Now that you know the building blocks, the supervisor, the workers, the tools, what process in your world is just sitting there waiting for its very own AI team? It's pretty amazing to think about the possibilities.